Good day, everyone. Welcome to Module 3 of the Armor Bearer and Adjutant Training course, How to Assist and Serve Leadership. And you have reached the final module. Congratulations. So let's get into it for Module 3. We're going to talk about a few things: protocol and the Adjutant General briefly, defense, avoiding burnout, proper uniform, proper dress code, etc. So let's get into it. I really wanted to touch on protocol really quick. Some people don't know why it's important to understand ministry protocol. You should know what you're doing. You should know what the church standards are for the universal church. You should also know what the church standards are for your own church and find out what they are when you go someplace else. These are so you can conduct yourself appropriately in various settings, whether you're serving at home or away, so you don't embarrass or dishonor yourself, your ministry, or your leader, so that you do well and that you serve in excellence, not disoriented, unaware of how things go or what they mean. And also, if you don't know something, you should ask. Ask your leader. Don't just be quiet, wondering, always wonder, oh, I always wonder that. If you always wonder that, why didn't you ask? Ask questions so you can get an answer. The Bible says, in all that getting, get an understanding. And this goes back to try to get there early. Introduce yourself. Find out who the ministers there are, who the usher is, who the adjutant is there. Familiarize yourself with the people and the protocols for that church. The basic protocols you should know when you're asked to get up and to speak, if you're asked to have words, if you're asked to introduce your leader. When you get up, you give honor to the leaders of that house. You give honor to that church. You have greetings for whatever the occasion is. If it's their anniversary, happy anniversary to that church. You give honor to God and those leaders before you move on into the introduction. Well, I think we talked about this before. Use your microphone so that people can hear you. Some people say, oh, I don't need a mic. I don't need a mic. But if everyone is using a microphone in that place, then use a microphone. Stay in order. Stay in order. Basic protocol: when your leaders finish praying, if the leader that's sitting in the pulpit with your leader does not turn to pray for your leader, then you begin to pray. But in any case, always pray for your leader after they finish ministering, and you don't have to wait for anyone in that house to do that. You're their adjutant. You're their armor bearer. So if you don't see them turn and pray, you pray. And if they do turn and pray, you're right there. You're right there in that prayer with them. You may even lead the prayer or finish it off, but always pray for your leader when they're done ministering. We talked about you may be asked to pray. Remember, your prayer is just as good as anyone else's. Pray the prayer and pray what the prayer is supposed to be prayed for. I remember someone praying to bless the food, and they prayed for the food, the election, the war going on in another country, and everything else. This was to bless the food. So remember, stay focused and pray what you're asked to pray for. So be prepared to pray. Offer up a prayer. Offer up a prayer for the message that was heard, for the hearts that would be hearing it, for the points that were relayed in the message. But remember to pray for what you're told to pray. Give the type of prayer that you're told to give. If you're asked to give an opening prayer, it's an opening prayer. If you're asked to give an offertory prayer for the offering, it's for the offering. It's not for the universe. It's for the offering. So okay, this is getting into the minister's training course. Let's move on. You're getting the idea of the general protocol for the pulpit. When you're in another church, you don't approach that pulpit or sit in that pulpit unless you are invited to. There was a time when I was told to go into the pulpit. I was at my friend's church, and he asked me to preside at the service, and I was already familiar with that church before he became pastor at that church. So when I came to preside, I came on time, but they didn't start on time. And he told me to go up to the pulpit that we were going to get started. Now he was busy, so he's like, I got to go downstairs. Please go up to the pulpit, and we're going to get started in 10 minutes. I did not really know the people at his church. I knew him. And so I went up to the pulpit, and I was up there. I was praying. And while I was praying, someone interrupted me and said, excuse me, may I help you? And I'm like, I'm praying. But she was very, she had an authoritative attitude, but it had a little arrogance attached to it. What can I say? She was being a watchman for her church. So she's asked, and she didn't know me, she didn't recognize me. So she asked me, what are you doing? Although she didn't have to interrupt me while I was praying, but nevertheless, I get it. And she was like, oh, excuse me. I said, I was told. I didn't even get a chance to finish. She said, I'm an elder in this church. This is our church. I'm an elder in this church. So please come down until we begin the service. We're not ready yet to begin the service. Excuse me, who are you? I told her my name. I didn't even get a chance to tell her that I knew her pastor and that I was presiding. He asked me to preside, that he told me to get up there. I didn't even go through all of that because it was just, I'm just so stunned that she interrupted me praying. I just left that pulpit and went down to the first row, and I continued to pray from there. So that when the service started, my friend who was a pastor, he was the one that came up and said, sorry for the delay, everyone. We're going to begin the service, and I'm going to turn this over into the hands of our presider, Dr. LaTonya McRae. And he asked me to come up. And that elder in the Lord's church was looking at me. It was just very awkward, you know. I never told her pastor. I did talk to her in a nice, kind way. But the reason why I shared that story is because, number one, even though my friend told me to go up to the pulpit area, I wasn't out of order in that regard because I was following his instruction. But his instruction wasn't protocol. What would have been better is if he had his usher escort me. What would have been better is if he introduced me to his elder. What would have been better even if he didn't, if I asked. Maybe I can't blame it on him. I could have asked, can you have the usher escort me? Who are the elders? Let me introduce myself to them. So all I'm saying is nobody's fault, but we all could have done better in that situation. And the lady who was, I was almost offended by what she did, but at the end of the day, she was being a good watchman for her church. Who are you, stranger, up in this pulpit? So I get it. And so I'm saying to you, you're going to have to be a watch person and also keep the order. Now, this was an elder, but she was operating as watchman, as adjutant, as so on. I said all of that to say, do not enter anyone's pulpit area unless you are invited, unless you are escorted by the ushers. And then also protocol. Always sanctify your leader in the sight of the people. Your leader may be weak. Your leader may have forgotten something. Your leader may be unorganized that day. Your leader may need special help that day. Whatever it is, even if they did something wrong, if their buttons are out of line, if anything is wrong, you are to make sure that they are presentable, not just physically presentable. Sanctify your leader in the eyes of the people, especially when something is compromised, especially when they're compromised, especially when they're tired, when they have things going on. Sanctify them in the sight of the people. You're supposed to be their support, and you're supposed to be a trusted and reliable form of help for them. General protocol. You're going into another church, even at your own church, secure your leader's items. We've gone over this before, but I just want to reiterate that. And also, arriving early gives you the advantage of seeing the pulpit, seeing the area that you're working with, knowing where your leader is going to change their clothes at, where they're going to be able to sit at, where they can meditate for a moment. These are things that you'll want to know before service begins, so that you can be a better help to your leader while you're serving. So now let's get into when we talk about the adjutancy and the adjutant general. The adjutancy in itself is a ministry of service, sacrifice, and order. They serve their local leaders, and they also serve other leaders. The adjutant general is a leader of adjutants in an organization, in a large ministry, and sometimes an adjutant general is chosen for a certain service. They may not be part of one's organization, but they may be chosen as the adjutant general for a special ceremony because of their knowledge, because of their anointing to serve in that fashion. Those adjutants that are adjutant generals serve closely with the bishops because they help keep order in the organization for high profile services, large services, conventions, convocations, homegoings, and things of that nature. Especially when it comes to a homegoing, a celebration, an affirmation, the consecration services for organizational leaders. The adjutant general is the master of protocol, everything from the processional, the order that people go in, how they walk in a ceremony, what they're wearing, what they should have on, where everyone should be standing, and so on. They organize all of the details. They help with the person who's making the program. They deal with the manpower for the service, the uniforms, and such. That person can be appointed to that role in their organization, or again, they can be selected by someone as the adjutant general for their service. For example, if I'm having an affirmation service or a consecration service, I may choose Elder so-and-so as my adjutant general because I know they're knowledgeable in that area and I want it done right and I want it done in the proper order. So these operating as a ministry, as an anointed consultant for that service, the adjutant general. They're preparing for the services for national officers. They make sure that there is a dignified homegoing service for the deceased high profile leaders. They assist in the national ceremonial occasions. They establish the liturgical protocol for organizations. They assure the proper pulpit etiquette. That's a bit. In summary, they assure the proper church and pulpit etiquette for the services. And they perform any other duties that their bishop may assign. Some pastors are adjutants and some pastors are adjutant general. This is not a play role. This is serious. So since we're clear on the adjutant as general adjutancy and the adjutant general, since we're clear on that now, let's talk about some of these ecclesiastical garments. So I'm sharing this photo of the clergy shirts and the clergy colors. I know that a lot of people do anything they want. Let me just give that disclaimer. There is an order and there's a reason for order, but some people just do what they want regardless. This is not a course for renegades. The adjutancy, the adjutant general serving as an armor bearer, yes, these are ministries of sacrifice and service, but they are also ministries of order. Order. O-R-D-E-R, order. Okay, I digress. Let's discuss traditional garments. They are traditional garments that represent the ecclesia, the called out one, the church, the leaders, and so on. Those are discussed in a different class, but just for the sake of familiarizing you very briefly about the Class A vestment, what that is, and Class B, or what they call civic attire. Civic attire is a regular clergy wear. Civic attire is when one is wearing their clergy, but not for a ceremony. They're wearing it just a basic service. Like on any Sunday, you'll see your pastor. It doesn't matter what role they're in. You'll see them with a black shirt and a collar sometimes. That's a basic uniform. Just like a doctor would wear a white overcoat when he comes in to see you, but he wears something different when it's surgery time. So different garments for different settings. The civic attire is your basic clergy. The Class A garments, also referred to as choir dress, that is the full ceremonial vestment. The tradition of wearing special regalia or uniforms is traced back to the biblical times, all the way into Genesis. It signifies that wearer is set apart for their service, and they've been chosen to serve God and humanity in that capacity. Know the value of wearing the right clergy wear. Vestments sometimes are an important aspect of a church's traditions. It serves as a symbol of that clergy member's function, but also their authority and their sacred calling. So don't get caught up in the colors or the styles, etc. Get caught up in Jesus. Get caught up in your calling. Get caught up in your service. Get caught up in hearing his voice. Get caught up in the next instruction. Okay, that's another sidebar. Different ceremonies call for different things. When you see sometimes a bishop or an apostle wearing their civic attire, sometimes they wear their cross in their pocket, and then when they're at the ceremony, it's out. They should wear the cross. They wear it as a symbol of their sacred service, but it's placed in their pocket. It's not hanging, it's not dangling. I've heard many people say, why do they put it in their pocket? Because it's in the way to stop it from dangling. I beg to differ. Don't wear it if that's the case. It's placed in your pocket. It's concealed. You're still in that office, but you're not in a special ceremony. When you're in the special ceremony, you see those crosses are exposed. Those crosses are visible. Why? Because we're in high holy ceremony at that time. When we are not, my cross is still on my neck because I'm still who I am in the Lord, but that cross is placed in my pocket. I am not in ceremony. Some people wear any color clergy shirt they desire as long as they have the proper collar, whether it's a tab or a full band or high profile collar. Some organizations will not tolerate that. Most organizations do have a similar order for their shirts. It may not be the same exact colors, but they do have some type of protocol for what the clergy colors are. It doesn't mean that one role is more important than the other. It doesn't mean that one minister is more important than the other. The colors do not signify the importance of one's service. It signifies the level of one's service and the function of their service. The color is your function and your level of service. And that doesn't mean one is more important. Look at all the pastors that wear black shirts. They're very, 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 very important. Are they more important than someone wearing a purple shirt? No. But it just signifies the function. The one in the purple may be a bishop or overseer, etc. So I want to share this slide with you so you have a good understanding. Let me move along from left to right to make it simple. Black pastors and ordained elders wear a full collar with a black shirt. Even the licensed ministers wear a black shirt, but they wear a tab collar. It is not the full band. It is a tab collar. It's for licensed ministers. Let me also say that deacons wear tab collars too sometimes. Some ministries will allow their ministers in training to wear the tab collars. Other ministries will not. You will not wear the tab collar until you are licensed. The maroon and burgundy shirt in most organizations, this is for the bishopric. Some organizations do not use this color at all. The blue is used for overseers, bishops, and in some organizations, blue is the color for those that are in the office of prophet. So when they have ceremonies and the prophets are in their Class A garments, the prophets Class A is blue. Some organizations, the overseers is blue. And rarely, but it does happen, where the bishops wear blue. Different organizations have their different protocol. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because some people will criticize another organization and say they shouldn't wear that color. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, all they that dwell therein. So if they've chosen those protocols for their organization, they're not out of order. That is the order for that group. Purple is a color used by overseers and bishops. Red is a color used by apostles and senior bishops in the organization. Fuchsia and the red purple, those are colors that are used by apostles and bishops alike. When apostles and bishops are in company of a senior apostle in that organization, they would wear the other colors, while the senior apostle or senior bishop would wear the red. And those that serve alongside that senior leader, still in the same title of the office, would wear a different color. Again, this speaks to differentiating by role or function, not by importance. So I want to clarify that. The white clergy shirt can be worn by anyone. White sometimes in certain organizations is used for weddings, baptisms, and funerals. Different organizations have different rules. So I want to clarify that, because you may be serving as an adjutant or an armor bearer with your leader and see different colors than the colors that were set forth in your organization. You may feel they're out of order, or you may even question if your own organization is in order. Let me assure you, go to your bylaws, go to your constitution, go to your handbook, make yourself familiar of what your organization does and practices so that you're clear on that. These colors are not going to be on the quiz. I'm giving this information to you so that you have a better idea as you serve with your leader, because your leader will be part of ceremonies, part of ordinations, part of consecrations, part of things that require a Class A vestment. Let's get into the Class A vestment. This is a Class A for a pastor. As you can see in this Class A for a pastor, myself and Pastor Steve are on the inset here as pastors. Class A, we have the white overlay, the cross, etc. As you can see, there's a difference between the cords. In the Class A vestment in the photo given from Mercy Robes, this is the standard. Some organizations want their pastors to have black and gold twisted robes. This is the case with Pastor Steve and myself in this ceremony. When it comes to the surplice is this white overlay type of robe over the cassock. Hold on, let's go back. Here are the cassocks: Anglican, Roman with the cinture, which is the waist tie. Then there's Roman with the mozzetta, which is the cape. So over those cassocks are the surplices, and you'll see in these photos that you can see in these photos that the surplices differ. Some have lace, some are plain edge, some have heavy lace, etc. They're all white. There's all still surplices, and this is the Class A for a bishop. Again, the overseers also wear this color. You can see one of our overseers here in the picture is wearing the Class A. In her organization, that is the color for the overseer. In other organizations, the bishop would wear this. Is this a big deal? Well, according to the Bible, when it talks about the overseers, they are the bishops. And when it talks about the bishops, they are the overseers. So is the problem the color or the term? Neither. They're all servants of the Lord. And here you see the same Class A for a pastor, but this picture is of a pastor being commissioned for a church outside. In the inset, you see two ladies being ordained as a pastor. They have their full collars on. They have their gold and black cord. However, they are serving under their overseer in that organization. They are serving under their overseer, and they're remaining pastors at that same church that their overseer is in, whereas the other pastor standing next to them is being commissioned out to another location. So you see, there are different uniforms. In this final picture, I wanted to share with you to show you that there are different surplices, that there are different colors, that there are different robes, even the zucchetto. You'll see in the far back, there's one leader in the back that has the zucchetto, the small purple cap on her head. There's another bishop there wearing the biretta with the palm on top. There are different head coverings, just like there are different robes, just like there are different crosses, and the colors represent their office. Sometimes a leader may have the person who's assisting them wear a cord, wear plain black and white, but still wear a cord that matches that leader's color so that that individual is identified with their leader as the assistant, as the armor bearer, as the adjutant, and they're by them. So it's not like they're a wandering, unidentified servant. They are identified by their uniform and by their function. So again, no one is more important than the other, but they serve in different ways, and the colors help us to identify how they serve and what their role and function is. For the sake of explanation, I hope you found this portion of the training helpful. Let's move on. So when it comes to wearing the ecclesiastical garments and it comes to protocol, make sure that you are dressed appropriately. When you're at a ceremony or at a service for your leader, we talked about finding out what the dress code is. Regardless of the dress code, you need to maintain the proper standards for an armor bearer or an adjutant. Even if it's casual that day, still be prepared to serve and to be dressed appropriately. When you're going to a service and it's an ordination, especially if you're helping your leader, you should wear black and white, a black dress, a black and white suit for men. Sometimes the people that are serving in the adjutancy or armor bearer, if it's a special service, they too have on a robe. They have a special uniform, and the adjutant general is the one who lets the other adjutants know how they will be dressed, how they will be adorned, what type of garment they should have on. When you're serving in a ceremony, even if you're not serving with a full adjutant robe and surplice on, you still want to have on black. You still want to have on plain clothes. It can be nice, but it should not be fancy with stripes or florals or brocades, with metallics and blings, nothing like that. It should be simple. Your buttons should not have a bunch of pearls, bunch of glitter or anything like that on it. It should be a plain suit, a plain dress. Your shoes should be plain also. They can be nice shoes. They can be nice shoes, but they should not be open-toed. They should be closed-toed, and they should not have any bling, anything. They should not have any bling or anything distracted on your footwear. And let me just say, wear comfortable shoes. You may have the best plain black heels in the world, the best plain black Stacey Adams in the world. However, if they're not comfortable, don't wear them. Don't wear them. You need to be comfortable. You need to be able to get up and down with ease. You need to be able to stand for a little bit if necessary. So be prepared for that. When we talk about protocol around the altar, some will have an altar call where people are coming up. You may have to work along with the ushers when people are coming around the altar. We did talk about this before. When someone's praying, if your leader is praying for a person of the opposite sex, you're there to help your leader. However, you can't catch that person if they fall. You need to solicit the help of somebody else that's there. Know who the deacons are. Know who those ministers are. So it's good to get there early and introduce yourself, or at least have those people pointed out to you. You have to be selective. You can't just call anybody up to start praying behind another person or be ready to catch them and they're not even saved or whatever. So you want to look and see who you would be calling on, especially if there's a lot of people around. You need to know who's there, first of all, on your team, who came with you. They should be prepared to help first, and then who from that church is able to help around the altar. And you could even ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. Remember, as an adjutant, as an armor bearer, you're your leader's administrator while you're there. So you need to find out, who can we call on to help around the altar? If there's a lot of people, you should know. Who are the ministers? Who are the ushers? So we're talking about protocol. These are also things mentioned in the minister's training course. However, I wanted to bring them up since you're serving very closely to your leader who's ministering. We've often seen where a woman preacher can pray for a man and touch his chest, touch his head, touch his shoulder, touch his back, or whatever. However, I've seen it doesn't sit that well when a man is doing the same thing. We've seen it where a man could be ministering and would pray for a woman. They should not be placing their hand on their chest. I know maybe another ministry you feel that that's okay, but I'm just saying we're teaching here on behalf of Tree of Life, and for us it is not acceptable. So what would be done in that case? You would have another minister place their hand on that person's chest, back. What if the problem is on their hip? Does that leader, that male, place his hand on that woman's hip? No. You get another woman, another minister that's with them, another minister of the church, someone to place their hand there in proxy, and then the minister would begin to pray, maybe placing his hand over that other person's hand, arm, touching and agreeing. So understand the protocols. The Bible says, don't let your good be evil spoken of. So when you're praying for someone, remember the decency and the order, and help your leader along. Your eyes are open and seeing what's happening, what's going on. So this is where you become the watch person and the master of keeping the order. You might say that's the usher's job. We are many members of one body working together. Yes, keeping the order, not just for the church service, not just for your leader in the pulpit, but around the altar as well. So let's move on. A servant's heart. Let's talk about a servant's heart, the exchange. You may feel like I'm sacrificing everything. I'm not getting anything in exchange or whatever. You are. If you don't feel like you're getting anything in exchange for your work, your sacrifice, then you're in the wrong role already. You're in the wrong role already. When we talk about Proverbs, the 2nd chapter, as a guideline for us serving, it is how Christ served, Christ's humility. And it reads in Philippians, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 to 18. Let me just do the first 2 verses. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united in Christ, if any comfort in his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one spirit and one mind. Paul is writing to the church at Philippi about being like-minded, having one goal. Paul is the apostle. These are the churches that Paul is the apostle. These are the churches that he planted, that he started. These are the souls. These are the people that are activated. These are the new Christians. So he's saying we've got to be with one spirit and one mind. And he talks about them being humble in Christ. Verse 5 talks about in their relationship with one another, have the same mindset of Christ. And I say to you, in your relationship with your leader, have the same mindset of Christ, who in verse 6, when it says being the very nature of God, he didn't consider his equality with God something to be used for his own advantage. You must have a servant's heart, and you must have the right motives, and you cannot use your leader's anointing or ministry itinerary, agenda, or popularity to your own advantage. Everything you do should be to the advantage of God's kingdom, to the advantage of the kingdom, to the advantage of ministry, to the advantage of souls being helped and saved and delivered, to the advantage of your leader's ministry who has been authorized by God, who has been commissioned by God, and you therefore being commissioned along with them to serve as an adjutant. This has to be the one mindset. It has to be kingdom. It has to be kingdom. So what you're getting in return is not coming from man. It's not coming from this earth. It's from a different payroll. It's from a different system of honor. It's from a different wage system. It's coming from God's payroll. That's a whole different type of economy and currency. So you got to have the right motives and a servant's heart. And there is an exchange. There is something you're getting in exchange. And you're very close to the oil. And don't be close to the oil and close to the anointing and not be so focused on doing that you're not getting. Because while you're doing, you should be getting. You should be receiving. You're close proximity to the oil. You should be oily yourself. You should be learning. You should be growing. We talked about this in the last lesson, but for the sake of time, we'll move on. Let's move on to petty offense. Petty offense, coming from the verses that I noted there, were Proverbs 19:11 says, good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook offense. I want to talk about petty offense because it's easy to get your feelings hurt if you stay in your feelings. Don't stay in your feelings. There's a book out by John Bevere called The Bait of Satan. It talks about offense and how the enemy uses that to tear the church down. I want to recommend that book to you because serving in leadership, and John Bevere also served under leadership, so he knows how easy one episode of offense is that can tear everything down. The enemy can use constructive criticism to make your feelings get hurt. Your leader is pointing out things that you need to improve on. Don't be offended by that. It's better, let your leader point out every single thing that they can find so that you can get better quick, rather than being offended. Oh, they're always finding something. Oh, they're always finding something. This is a good thing. You have to compare up, not compare down. You have to compare positive, not compare it to negative. When you're being corrected, when you're shown a better way, when you're shown a more excellent way, when you're take it as an opportunity to learn and be better. Don't be offended by that. Sometimes people are in a hurry and may not have time to say things in a soft, cuddly, and pink puffy way that makes you feel good. But as long as you get it, you have to take the information. And maybe the tone may not be the way you wanted it, but is the information what you needed to improve? So we have to think about these things. Proverbs 19:11 says it is the glory of that one with the good sense to overlook the offense. And that's not easy. But what I'm saying, if you're called to this, you're going to have to overlook sometimes when you're corrected, and it's not in a rubby-dub huggy way. Sometimes people are just averse to correction, so that whenever they're corrected, it doesn't matter how nice it was said, they don't like it. And if you can't deal with correction, this is not the role for you. It's better for you to be corrected. I'd rather be corrected like a whole month of correction than you have to correct me all year long. If you could correct me every time for a month and I can know everything that I was doing wrong or needed to improve upon, then I know I'm going to have a great year because I received a lot of correction. So you have to think of it that way. Receive that correction so that you can be improved and on point for the next season. Taking offense to every little thing, being petty, that's the enemy's goal, to tear you down from doing your role. Oh, they don't appreciate me every time they're telling me that. No, they do appreciate you and they want you in that role, and that's why they're correcting you, because they want to see you do well at it. Otherwise they would just say, oh, this ain't working, you got to go. So think about these things before you get offended over every time you receive correction. Receive correction well and use that correction to your advantage, not to your disadvantage. James chapter 1 verses 19 to 20 says, understand this, my dear brothers, every person must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So when we talk about being offended, listen to the whole instruction. Be quick to hear. Be slow to defend yourself. Don't say, I have someone that every time you say something, they always got a defense. They're not being attacked, but they feel like they always have to defend themselves. You don't always have to defend yourself. Just receive the instruction and keep it moving. Receive that word. Receive the instruction and keep it moving. Galatians 5:22 and 23 says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. People think of self-control not being angry. No, self-control is, I'm not going to let this hurt my feelings. I'm not going to fall apart and cry because they said that. Self-control goes deeper than me getting upset over what you said. Self-control is deeper than me not slapping you when I really want to slap you. Also, it's self-control in your mind. Don't let your feelings run away with you. Oh, they don't like what I did because they said I should have did it this way. Doesn't mean they didn't like what you did. They're just trying to tell you what they prefer. And you serve as an adjutancy or an armor bearer, you should know what your leaders' preferences are. Even if they tell you, well, I want it this way the other time, doesn't mean they didn't like the way it happened, and it doesn't mean the way it happened was totally Unacceptable. A good leader is going to let you know when something is unacceptable or when something is wrong. But if they're sharing a preference with you, that's helping you to serve them better. Self-control in your mind. Don't be offended over everything that is said to you. Self-control. Don't let your feelings respond so sharply to every form of criticism. A lot of it is to help you be better. If you can look at it that way, then you will do well as you grow in service. Let's move on to avoiding burnout. You want to avoid burnout. How we're going to avoid burnout? My leader is running around all the time, every week, 2 and 3 appointments. How can I not be burnt out? Number one, in our last lesson and the lesson before that, we talked about getting help. Get a team. If you have a leader that runs like that, and the adjutants have families and jobs and etc., then maybe you need more than one adjutant. So that means, are you going to be the leader of that adjutant team, or you're going to be one of the team players? So if you're the person that's closest to your leader, then it's up to you. Be selective and get some other help on board so that your leader can be covered when you're not available. So, because their itinerary can't be based on whether you're available or not. But you, as their armor bearer and as their adjutant, you're to make sure that they are covered even if you're not there. So you have to make sure that you can get help. This helps you to avoid burnout. And then also, maybe you do like to run. Maybe you do like to run with your leader. You've got to get your proper rest. Rest. Don't you know when you're tired, the enemy takes advantage of that. The enemy takes advantage of your weariness, of you being tired, of you having had enough rest, takes advantage of you not eating the right foods. Understand, everything is not the enemy, but if you mess up, the enemy will take advantage of those opportunities. If you know that foods upset your stomach, make you gassy, and you have to run to the bathroom when you eat those foods, don't do that the night before you have to go somewhere with your leader. Use wisdom. And then don't overburden yourself either. If you know you're going somewhere the next day with your leader, if you can help it. I know life is lifing. I know that. But if you can help, and don't overburden yourself so that you're all tapped out when it's time for the service to begin where your leader is. Because you were running all day and night the evening before, and now it's time to serve your leader. You're already out of breath, and the service didn't even get started. You're already pooped out. So you have to think about these things when you serve, because this is ministry. These are not just social events. So remember to eat right. Remember to get your proper rest. And then also, you may need to get some help. One of the things is communication. Communication. You have to communicate your availability, your scheduling, etc. If there's something going on in your life that's stopping you from serving well, you need to talk to your leader about it. Don't try to press on and press past a crisis in your life while you're serving as an adjutant. Your leader should know about that, so your leader can pray with you, so your leader can help you, and maybe some of the other people on your team that support, they can fill in those times to free you up. We're talking about God's human resource department here. We're all trying to get it together and work together for the kingdom. How to avoid burnout. Avoid distractions and avoid overcommitting yourself in other areas. I know some adjutants have made the error of overcommitting themselves, knowing good and well that they have a big service, maybe one day, or a conference, and then hanging out. Now, I'm not saying to avoid being with your friends, but if you know you have a service, there's some hard choices that you're going to have to make. What are the choices you want to make? Do I want to hang out with my friends and say, hey, I can hang out with you guys, but only till 10 o'clock, then I have to go? Or can you handle it? You have to make wise choices. People pleasing is not the goal. A lot of times adjutants want to please everybody. That is not the goal. That is not conducive to ministry. What? Pleasing people not conducive to ministry? No, ma'am, no, sir. You cannot be a people pleaser and serve effectively in ministry. Yes, you're there to serve the people. You're there to help them. You're there to guide them. You're there to assist them. But pleasing them? That's not going to happen all the time. We are very glad when it does happen. That's a great feeling. But you also have to understand your role, that will not happen all the time. And you have to walk in the authority that God has given you. Even as an adjutant and an armor bearer, there's an authority that you walk in as you serve under your leader. So people pleasing is not the goal. It's the kingdom goal. It's the goal of God. It's the ministry goal. It's that assignment. That is the goal. Completing that assignment well and effectively and being obedient. That is the goal. If you decide you want to go and please the people, you're going to miss your opportunity to serve effectively. You have to be careful the choices that you make in your personal life and in your social life, that they don't intrude on your personal development in serving the Lord, on your personal development in ministry, on your personal development as an adjutant, as an armor bearer, or on assignment. Make sure that your choices don't interfere with that. Let your life line up. Let your life line up with the type of service that you conduct in ministry. So you have to have that balance in how you operate, the balance in your personal life. Yes, it's a life. Remember, it's a life of sacrifice and service and order. You got to get yourself in order also. You can't just be the keeper of the order and your whole life is out of order. Get yourself in order. Have your balance in your life when it comes to serving and in your personal life. There should be a healthy balance and there should be boundaries. Does this mean you're going to be available for every single thing that your leader goes to? No, you may not. You may not be available for everything. Maybe you'd like to, but if it's becoming a tremendous strain on you, your leader doesn't want. A good leader will not want that for you. So make sure you have the balance and the boundaries. And your leader should have boundaries too. That's why you can't be easily offended if your leader doesn't want to talk. If you invite your leader to go to your family thing and they don't want to do it, it's not you. It's their call. It's their life. It's the boundaries that they have to set. There are many times where I would love to go and hang out with some people, but I'm not called to that sometimes. I'm not released to do that. So you have to understand your leader's not always released to do that. They need to stay in the word. They need to stay in prayer. They need to be fasting and praying. Sometimes they just need to stay away from all the commotion of the world so they can stay focused on what God would have them to do. It's not you. It's not your family. They don't want to come out. They're not invited, or they're standoffish, or they're antisocial. Believe me, it's not that. It's not that. It may seem that way with some. Yeah, it may seem that way with some, but some people, they have to do that. It's an obedience. It's a posture of obedience to the Lord. And as you serve a life of service, a life of sacrifice, what do you think your leader's doing? They're in that same vein, serving in that same way, most cases to a greater capacity. So understand that when we talk about avoiding burnout, don't get yourself burned out. Be a strong adjutant, be an alert adjutant, be a helpful assistant, not dragging, not lagging, not sick, not tired, not with uncomfortable shoes on, not with a suit that's too tight. Get yourself in full order, ready to serve, geared up, prepared, on point, and in position, ready to serve. This leads to the big A word. What's the big A word? Dum, 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 dum. It's accountability. You have to be accountable. You're accountable to your leader. Accountability is necessary for an effective relationship with any leader and their team. It deals with being responsible. It deals with taking responsibility for your actions. It deals with honesty and ethical behavior. It deals with transparency, and it deals with learning and growing together. How can it deal with learning and growing together? I'm glad you asked. Because when you're learning and growing together, you admit when you're wrong. You apologize when it is appropriate. You accept criticism. You receive instruction. You begin to show your focus. Accountability prompts you to communicate better. Why? Because you're accountable. Accountability makes you show up when you're supposed to. Accountability stops you from leaving people hanging. Accountability helps you admit your errors and speak up about somebody else's errors. Are you saying accountability makes you a tattletale? No, but it helps you to want to make sure things go right on your watch. Remember, we talked about not on my watch. If I'm accountable for something and somebody else is falling off, I have to expose them. Not like a big tattletale. I'm going to go to them and say, hey, you need to come up in this area. If they're not coming up, then I'm going to have to report them and say, hey, so-and-so's not coming up from this area. I want you to know that I talked to them about it, but there's no progress. That's Bible. So this is the way we conduct ourselves. It's accountability. Accountability brings solutions to problems. Why? Because we are trying to address them together, and we can't address or tackle any problem that we're afraid to talk about or we're afraid to admit. So owning up to anything in accountability, we're learning together and we're growing together. I have an assistant that I would share my location with. I travel internationally and domestically. They would be able to know if I was at the airport, what hotel I was in, what country I was in, and so on and so forth. But when I would be home, they could tell if I was at the doctor's office, if I was at the church. If they're my assistant, I do want them to know where I'm at so that they could not just find me in case something goes wrong, but I'm accountable and they're my assistant. So you have to think about what kind of relationship you're going to have. You know, are you knowing where your leaders' whereabouts are all the time and they don't know nothing about your life? Your life should align with your service. So when it comes to leadership, when it comes to serving, when it comes to accountability, it's an exchange as we work together. It's an exchange as we serve together in transparency, in accountability, in honesty, in diligence, and in excellence. Colossians 3:23 and 24 says, whatever you do, do with your whole heart as if you're serving to the Lord, since you know that you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving. Understand that. You may have a demanding leader. They may have a busy itinerary. You may seem to be out of breath sometimes, but understand it is Christ the Lord that you are serving. You may travel with them to this country and that country. You may carry the bags, the suitcases, or whatever. You may even make sure that their car was washed before they went to the big gala or wherever they were the keynote speaker. But understand, it is Christ the Lord that you are serving. It is Christ the Lord that you are serving. And the Word of God says, whatever you do in word or in deed, do it all unto the Lord. This concludes Module 3. I hope that you enjoyed this crash course. If you have any questions or require further assistance, please feel free to reach out to us. Check out our other courses online: Prophetic Ministry Basics, Spiritual Warfare Essentials, Ministers Training Course, and Missions Training. More to come. Thank you again, and God bless you.